John Bell Hood was a Confederate general during the American Civil War. Hood had a reputation for bravery and aggressiveness that sometimes bordered on recklessness. Arguably one of the best brigade and division commanders in the Confederate States Army, Hood gradually became increasingly effective as he was promoted to lead larger, independent commands late in the war. But his career and reputation were marred by his decisive defeats leading an army in the Atlanta Campaign and the Franklin-Nashville Campaign. Hood's education at the United States Military Academy led to a career as a junior officer in both the infantry and cavalry of the antebellum U.S. Army in California and Texas. At the start of the Civil War, he offered his services to his adopted state of Texas. He achieved his reputation for aggressive leadership as a brigade commander in the army of Robert E. Lee during the 7 Days Battles in 1862, after which he was promoted to division command. He led a division under James Longstreet in the campaigns of 1862–63. At the Battle of Gettysburg, he was severely wounded, rendering his left arm useless for the rest of his life. Transferred with many of Longstreet's troops to the Western Theater, Hood led a massive assault into a gap in the Union line at the Battle of Chickamauga, but was wounded again, requiring the amputation of his right leg. Hood returned to field service during the Atlanta Campaign of 1864, and at the age of 33 was promoted to temporary full general in command of the Army of Tennessee at the outskirts of Atlanta. There, he dissipated his army in a series of bold, calculated, but ultimately fruitless assaults, and was forced to evacuate the besieged city, leading his men through Alabama and into Tennessee. His army was severely damaged in a massive frontal assault at the Battle of Franklin, and he was decisively defeated at the Battle of Nashville by his former West Point instructor, Maj. Gen. George H. Thomas, after which he was relieved of command. After the war, Hood moved to Louisiana and worked as a cotton broker and in the insurance business. His business was ruined by a yellow fever epidemic in New Orleans during the winter of 1878–79, and he succumbed to the disease himself, dying just days after his wife and oldest child, leaving 10 destitute orphans. Early life. Hood was born in Owensville, Kentucky, the son of John Wills Hood, a doctor, and Theodosia French Hood. He was a cousin of future Confederate General G. W. Smith and the nephew of U.S. Representative Richard French. French obtained an appointment for Hood at the United States Military Academy, despite his father's reluctance to support a military career for his son. Hood graduated in 1853, ranked 44th in a class of 52 that originally numbered 96, after a near expulsion in his final year for excessive demerits. At West Point and in later Army years, he was known to friends as Sam. His classmates included James B. McPherson and John M. Schofield. He received instruction in artillery from George H. Thomas. These 3 men became Union Army generals who would oppose Hood in battle. The superintendent in 1852–55 was Colonel Robert E. Lee, who would become Hood's commanding general in the Eastern Theater. Notwithstanding his modest record at the Academy, in 1860, Hood was appointed chief instructor of cavalry at West Point, a position he declined, citing his desire to remain with his active field regiment and to retain all of his options in light of the impending war. Hood was commissioned a brevet second lieutenant in the 4th U.S. Infantry, served in California, and later transferred to the 2nd U.S. Cavalry in Texas, where he was commanded by Col. Albert Sidney Johnston and Lt. Col. Robert E. Lee, while commanding a reconnaissance patrol from Fort Mason on July 20, 1857. Hood sustained the first of many wounds that marked his lifetime in military service, an arrow through his left hand during action against the Comanches at Devil's River, Texas. He was later promoted to first lieutenant in August 1858.